I still remember the first time I suspected something was off. It wasn't a dramatic moment. No lipstick on a collar. No unfamiliar cologne lingering in the sheets. Just an offhand comment. 3 words that slid out of her mouth so casually I almost missed them. "You're too stable." That's what Vanessa said, standing in the middle of our kitchen, holding a glass of Pinot like it was a trophy. I had just fixed the sink again. 3rd time that month. She was talking about our marriage like it was a weather app, partly dull with a 90% chance of predictable. I smiled, wiped my hands on the towel, and said, "Stable's how houses stay standing." She laughed. Not with me, at me. That's when I knew. Not about the affair, yet. But I knew something had changed in her. That laugh didn't belong to the woman who used to leave post-it notes in my lunchbox. The one who once cried when I got promoted because she said she was proud of me. No, this laugh had edges. And you don't sharpen a laugh unless you plan on cutting something. Still, I played my part. Husband. Provider. Man who doesn't ask questions. But I started paying attention. Vanessa had a routine. Pilates every Tuesday. Book club Thursdays. Real estate mixers sprinkled in between. You'd think she was negotiating land deals with royalty based on how she dressed for them. Heels too high for the sidewalk and lipstick with names like Scarlet Decision. So I started adjusting my own routine. I synced our devices, just in case. I started saving receipts, quietly. And I bought a little notebook. Black leather. No labels. Looked boring enough to ignore. Every time she slipped out with a wink and a "don't wait up," I wrote the date and time. That notebook. That was the beginning of the end. One Thursday evening, I pretended to be asleep when she came home. 11:54 p.m. She tiptoed in like a teenager past curfew, heels in hand, humming something I couldn't place. A jazz tune maybe, or the soundtrack of a life I wasn't invited to. Next morning over coffee, I asked how the mixer went. She blinked too fast. "What mixer?" "The real estate one. Last night." "Oh, right. It was good." She couldn't even remember her own lies. I smiled and handed her her travel mug. "You're glowing," I said. "Am I?" she asked, preening a bit. "That new serum must be working." "Sure, sweetheart. Let's call it serum. Now here's the thing about me. I'm not loud. I'm not reckless. I'm not the guy who flips tables when he's mad. I'm the guy who writes things down. I'm the guy who double-checks the math. And I'm the guy who waits." So I waited. Until the day she slipped. It was mid-March. She was packing for a conference in Denver. Said it was an all-women's summit. Empowerment, networking, all that. I nodded, helped her zip the suitcase, kissed her cheek, and waved goodbye from the driveway like the loyal golden retriever she thought I was. But Denver? No flights to Denver left our airport that afternoon. How do I know? Because I was already at the airport. Watching. She met someone at gate C9. I watched them embrace like something out of a Nicholas Sparks trailer. He looked like a man who'd practiced smirking in a mirror, tan, over-accessorized, probably drove a Tesla he couldn't afford. She looked like a woman who hadn't been married for 14 years and didn't have a husband watching her from behind a vending machine. They flew to Miami. I flew home. That night, I opened my black notebook and wrote in all caps, "It's him." And I smiled. Because now we weren't playing guesswork anymore. Now it was chess. And I was already 5 moves ahead that I didn't confront her when she got back. That's what she expected. Drama. Tears. A thrown vase, maybe. But I gave her oatmeal. "Good trip?" I asked, setting the bowl down like I hadn't just spent 48 hours printing her boarding passes and collecting hotel receipts from a Hilton in Miami. She yawned. "Exhausting. So many panels." "Panels? Sure. I bet the poolside cabana had great acoustics." She kissed my cheek, told me I was sweet for making breakfast, and wandered upstairs humming. Like she hadn't just lied to my face. I smiled, washed the dishes, and opened the laptop tucked in the drawer beneath the toaster. Password-protected folder. File name, Vanessa March. Inside were photos of her at the airport, a video of her holding hands with Tesla Man outside a seafood restaurant in Miami, a screen recording of her texts, synced through our family iCloud, because apparently I'm too old to understand tech. Spoiler alert, I understand it very well. His name was Damon. Of course it was. He looked like a Damon. A walking cologne ad with perfectly tousled hair and the emotional depth of a sneeze. Damon worked in consulting, which from what I could tell meant collecting checks for repeating things other people already Googled. He had a motivational podcast and a half-finished memoir titled Own the Moment. Guess what moment I owned? March 12th. Hotel room 714. Room service for two. Champagne. Strawberries. A robe she brought from our house. They thought they were being careful, but Vanessa reused passwords. Damon didn't know about metadata, and I had time. So I built a digital dossier. I wasn't collecting evidence anymore. I was curating it. That week, Vanessa started acting nicer. Maybe guilt. Maybe her way of keeping the mask in place. She complimented my shirts, laughed at my jokes like I was on stage, even suggested a weekend trip to the mountains. To reconnect. I played along, packed the car, even let her hold my hand at the overlook like we were still starring in the last act of a Hallmark film. But while she slept in our cabin, wrapped in fleece and faux affection, I was forwarding files to a lawyer named Sienna, one of the best in the county. Sharp, discreet, and surgical with asset division. Sienna called me the next morning. "You've done half my job already," she said. "Yeah," I replied, watching Vanessa stretch and check her phone. I like to be thorough. By mid-April, the trap was set. I changed nothing on the outside. Still went to work. Still kissed her goodnight. Still helped her mother move apartments. Because the best revenge isn't messy. It's clean. It's slow. It's done with a smile. And when you finally show your cards, it's not a shout. It's a whisper. April 26th, a Thursday. She left for another client mixer. I knew she'd be gone till morning. Damon had posted a blurry Instagram story from a rooftop bar, one where Vanessa's scarf just happened to be visible over his shoulder. Perfect. That night, I made dinner. For one, I played our wedding song on the record player, and I printed out everything. Every photo, every receipt, every lie she'd stapled to our marriage like it was wallpaper. I laid them out on the dining table. Neat, chronological, color-coded by betrayal. Then I placed a sealed envelope on top. Inside, my terms. I wasn't asking. I was declaring. When she walked in the next morning, heels clicking, hair windswept from someone else's passenger seat, she stopped cold. "What's this?" she asked, staring at the table. I sipped my coffee. "Proof." She scoffed, flipping through the photos. "You went through my stuff?" I smiled. "I went through our stuff. Only, turns out, most of it wasn't ours." She tried to laugh it off. "This doesn't mean anything." "Oh, it does," I said. "That envelope? It's a deal. Sign it, and we part ways clean. You keep the Range Rover. I keep the house. You walk. I don't torch your reputation. You don't walk? I send the unedited version to your brokerage, your Pilates studio, and your parents." Her mouth hung open. "You're blackmailing me." "No," I said. "I'm showing you consequences. Something you haven't experienced since 2014. She stared at the papers, then back at me. "You won't actually do it." I stood, leaned in close, and whispered, "Vanessa, I already did." She didn't sign the papers that day. Of course she didn't. Vanessa was the kind of woman who didn't lose without breaking the board on her way out. She looked at the evidence laid out like a prosecution exhibit and still had the audacity to say, "This won't hold up. You're just bitter." Bitter? I built a life around her while she played Love Island, midlife edition in real time. Bitter would have been me yelling, me pleading, me dragging this into public. But I was calm, because she thought she was playing poker. I was counting cards. 2 days later, I got an email from our financial advisor. Odd timing. Vanessa had requested a full liquidity report for our joint accounts, plus information on the cabin upstate. The one I bought for our anniversary 2 years ago. The one she pretended to love, just long enough to get it deeded jointly. Oh, there it was. She wasn't going to fight the divorce. She was going to loot it. I didn't panic. Instead, I walked into our office, opened the second drawer from the bottom, and pulled out a bright orange folder labeled "Just in Case." Inside were the trust amendments, the Shell LLC documents, the notarized letter from her father, affirming that the down payment for the cabin was gifted to me, not us. She didn't know it, but she'd signed a postnup 3 years ago, tucked inside the paperwork for our estate plan refresh. She signed it half watching a Netflix show, nodding to every line without reading a word. The woman who posted #BossBabe under every filtered selfie? She hadn't read the fine print. And that was going to cost her. Later that week, she tried charm. Came downstairs in that dress. The red one. The one she hadn't worn since before Pilates Damon became a regular weekend activity. She made dinner. Lit candles. "Can't we just talk? I hate how things are going. We were good once." I let her say her piece. Then I said mine. "You didn't just cheat. You tried to replace me. And now you want me to forget it because you cooked risotto? She blinked. The mask slipped. That's when she said the thing that sealed everything. You weren't enough. Not emotionally. Not physically. Not exciting. Oh, there it was. The monologue. I waited for it. Like clockwork. Like every guilty spouse running out of defenses. So I stood up, kissed her forehead like she was a guest in someone else's home, and walked upstairs. Left her in the glow of those discount candles with her overcooked risotto and her rotting justifications. The next morning, she woke up to silence. No coffee. No breakfast. No me. Just a bright yellow sticky note on the fridge. Enough. L. That same day, her brokerage received a package. Unlabeled. No return address. Inside, a flash drive. Contents. Her texts with Damon. Voice memos she accidentally saved to our family drive. A 10-minute screen recording of her calling her assistant an expendable hamster during a Zoom call she forgot was being recorded. Yeah, that job. Not so stable anymore. But that wasn't the real twist. Not yet. You see, while Vanessa was busy unraveling her own life, I was elsewhere. At lunch. With Damon. Surprised that I picked a quiet place. Italian, old school, the kind with white tablecloths and waiters who pretend not to notice the tension between two men about to share a bottle of Pellegrino and 80 pounds of unspoken animosity. Damon arrived 7 minutes late. Of course he did. He walked in like a man who still believed in mirrors. Button-down shirt open just enough to suggest a gym membership. Sunglasses perched on his head like a crown of delusion. Logan, he said, flashing me that half-smile. The one that had clearly worked on people dumber than me. Damon, I replied, motioning to the seat across from me. Glad you could make time between. What is it you do again? Mindset architecture? He chuckled, but it caught in his throat. Good. The waiter came. Damon ordered something with truffle oil and the confidence of a man whose credit card debt was probably a group chat between banks. I stuck with coffee. Look, man, he said after a sip. I wasn't expecting this, but I'm glad you reached out. I think it's time we all moved on. I nodded. Funny. You mean like how you moved on to my wife in my house? He opened his mouth, but I cut him off. It's fine. Really. You two deserve each other. I just wanted to see the man who thought he could break into my life without checking for cameras. His brow furrowed. Cameras? Oh, right. He didn't know. You see, about 2 years ago, I installed a full security system at the house. Front door, garage, even a discreet motion cam facing the living room, because we had a string of break-ins in the neighborhood. Vanessa knew about it. She just forgot. And Damon? Well, Damon gave the camera a great performance. April 14th, him on my couch. Shirtless. April 15th, him borrowing my robe. My robe. April 18th, him saying, and I quote, "Don't worry, babe. Logan's soft. He won't do anything." That one became my favorite. So at the table, I reached into my jacket pocket and slid over a small envelope. He looked confused. What's this? A copy of your greatest hits, I said, sipping my coffee. In case you ever forget what self-sabotage looks like in 4K. He pulled out a still frame, him and Vanessa, on the couch, his hand where hands don't belong. He went pale. How did you? I told you, I said. I'm not loud. I'm thorough. Then I leaned forward, rested my elbows on the table, and gave him the real gift. You didn't ruin my marriage, Damon. You just cleared the rubble. She was already erasing me. You were just the shovel she picked. He didn't know what to say, which was perfect. But here's the thing, I added. She's not your happy ending either. Why? I stood up. Because she's not capable of one. I left him sitting there, stunned, truffle oil congealing on his untouched pasta. Vanessa thought she was upgrading. Damon thought he was winning. I knew I was rebuilding. And I never lose twice. IT started with a letter on cream cardstock. Embossed. Elegant. Like betrayal wearing pearls. Vanessa had finally lawyered up. Funny, considering 3 weeks ago she still thought I was too comfortable to fight back. Too routine. Too boring. Too loyal. She thought wrong. The envelope came in the afternoon, hand-delivered by some guy in a vest who called me sir and avoided eye contact. Inside was a formal notice from Leighton and Stroud, a boutique firm uptown known for getting vindictive spouses the kitchen sink, the dog, and sometimes the neighbor's fence just for sport. The letter, in essence, read, Vanessa is prepared to dissolve the marriage under grounds of emotional neglect and abandonment of marital duties. I laughed out loud, right there at the kitchen island. Abandonment? I had made her coffee every morning for 12 years. Emotional neglect? I once left work early to hold her hand through a crying fit over a delayed Amazon package. But that was the beauty of her move. It wasn't true, but it sounded plausible. Because I'd always been the quiet one, the calm one, the guy who didn't fight loud. She mistook stillness for surrender. So I called Sienna. Sienna was my lawyer, a friend of a friend. Columbia law, sharp as a scalpel, and capable of destroying egos with the precision of a chess grandmaster using nothing but polite email headers. She picked up on the second ring. I figured this call was coming, she said. It's here, I said. She sent Stroud. Of course she did, Sienna sighed. Vanessa always struck me as the type to mistake logos for leverage. She wants the house, I said. She's not getting the sink, Sienna replied. That weekend, Vanessa came by the house to grab a few things. She strutted in like she still owned the floors. Wore her old engagement ring like it was a trophy and not a pawn ticket I once took out to pay her credit card debt. I assume you got my letter, she said, smirking. Oh, I did, I said, stacking dishes in the dishwasher. Nice font. Very dramatic. She leaned against the counter like she thought we were co-stars in a romantic drama, instead of two people standing on opposite ends of a crumbling empire. Look, Logan, she said, softening her voice. I'm not trying to be cruel here. I just want what's fair. Fair. I repeated, raising an eyebrow. Vanessa, you tried to backdoor my life with a motivational speaker in discount loafers. We were drifting for years, she said, with that rehearsed sigh she used when she wanted to sound noble. You just didn't want to admit it. Maybe I didn't, I said. But I certainly didn't introduce drifting to the king-size bed while I was at work, either. She rolled her eyes. You're being petty. I handed her a small box. What's this? Your mail, I said. Also, a courtesy copy of the evidence I submitted with the divorce response. She opened it. Inside were photographs. Not salacious. Just truthful. Hotel receipts. Text threads. A copy of the security cam footage. Her face tightened. Jaw clenched just enough to notice. You recorded me? No. I secured my home. You just forgot. She stood there, trying to recalibrate her strategy like a politician caught mid-scandal, fumbling for an angle that hadn't already collapsed under its own arrogance. This isn't going to work, she snapped. My lawyer says. Your lawyer hasn't seen the trust structure, I said, drawing a plate. Or the postnup, or the updated deed on the cabin. She blinked. Because that, she didn't know. Let me pause here. See, Vanessa loved paperwork about as much as she loved plain water, tolerated only when necessary. So during our estate plan revision 3 years ago, I had her sign a stack of documents she never even skimmed. Among them, a spousal waiver on future claims to property not actively co-owned. An agreement stating her brokerage business would be excluded from marital assets if mine was too. And yes, a post-nup clause limiting her stake in my holdings if either party was found to be in breach of exclusive marital fidelity. Her words, ironically. She had insisted on that phrasing back when she thought I might be the one to cheat. She'd signed it all with a glass of wine in one hand and a phone in the other. Because she trusted me, and I didn't betray her. I just made sure she couldn't take what she never appreciated. A week later, mediation started. Vanessa arrived with her attorney, an older man with the kind of face that looked like it used the word gentleman unironically. Sienna and I arrived together. She wore gray. No frills. No perfume. Just quiet confidence and a tablet full of receipts. During introductions, Stroud leaned in. Let's try to keep this amicable. Sienna smiled. Amicable starts with honesty. That set the tone. 3 hours in, Vanessa was fidgeting. Stroud looked uncomfortable. Sienna was dismantling their case line by line, calmly presenting evidence that Vanessa had broken 3 major clauses in her own marital agreements. They asked for half the equity. We countered with 22% and a warning that if they pressed harder, we'd submit the footage to the ethics committee at her brokerage. Silence. Afterward, in the parking garage, Vanessa caught up to me. Why are you doing this? I looked her in the eye. Because you made me watch you burn this house down. Now I'm just making sure you don't walk away with the matches. She looked like she wanted to scream, or cry, or say my name the way she used to when she still meant it. But all she did was turn around. and walk away. Good. You ever watch someone fall in slow motion? Not from a cliff. That's too quick. Too final. No, I mean the kind of fall that happens in steps. Slips, cracks, trembles, until suddenly the floor is gone and no one around them knows how they got there. That's what it was like watching Vanessa unravel. Not with screaming or headlines. With silence. And shadows. And one very public oops. It started with a LinkedIn post. Not from me. I wouldn't waste a keyboard click trying to go viral. It was from a junior associate at Vanessa's brokerage. Young, sharp, observant, and, unfortunately for Vanessa, very much present at the firm's last staff retreat. The one in Miami. The one she pitched as a business strategy weekend. The same one I had in 1080p. This associate, let's call her Maya, posted a celebratory message with a group photo. Grateful to work with such a dynamic, empowering team. Couldn't have asked for better leadership at the Miami Summit. Just a feel-good professional shout-out. Except, dead center of the photo was Vanessa, and directly beside her, Damon, shirt slightly unbuttoned, his hand just a little too familiar on her lower back. Zoom in. The same red scarf from our living room. The one I got her for our anniversary in Rome. Still wrapped around her purse strap like a trophy. And the best part? The post was tagged to Vanessa's company page. The internet did what it does best. A client of hers, who, funny enough, had once referred me to a financial advisor, commented, "Wow, thought this was a corporate summit. Didn't know romantic partners were invited. Strange policy." Then the whispers started. One of the brokerage's top clients, an old money developer who hated scandal more than mold in a mansion, pulled a project. Then two more followed suit. Within 72 hours, Vanessa's firm went into reputation control mode. PR spin, internal emails, and a strongly worded meeting from the partners. She wasn't fired. Not officially. She was relocated. Out of the office. Off the site. No longer the face of elite realty and design. The face had cracked. Meanwhile, I was painting a fence. Seriously, there's something weirdly satisfying about brushing wood grain while the world burns behind you. No lawyer. No judge. Just pine boards and peace. Sienna called while I was on coat too. She's bleeding clients, she said. Half of her passive income was tied to that brokerage. She still have Damon? Doubt it. Last I checked, his podcast took a break for personal reasons. No new episodes. Last post was a motivational quote about heartbreak. I smiled. Did he spell it right? Barely. I didn't reach out to Vanessa. She didn't reach out to me. But her sister did. Karen. The only person in Vanessa's family who ever saw through the perfect hair, perfect life performance she played like a violin. She called on a Thursday. You didn't hear it from me, Karen said, but she's staying in a short-term rental outside town. Selling the range. Can't afford it anymore. That was fast, I replied. She always moved fast. Just usually in the wrong direction. I stayed quiet. Logan, she said, after a pause. I know this isn't my place, but thank you. For what? For not torching her publicly. You could have. You had every reason to. Didn't need to, I said. She lit the match herself. I just handed her a mirror. 3 weeks later, I bumped into Maya. At the farmer's market, of all places. She was in line behind me at the bakery stand, eyeing the last lemon scone like it owed her money. I let her have it. She smiled. Aren't you, Logan? Depends who's asking. Maya. Vanessa's old firm. I think I accidentally started the gossip wildfire. You. She winced. Sorry if that made things worse. You didn't, I said. You just opened the blinds. Sunlight did the rest. We stood there awkwardly for a second, both holding brown bags of carbs and mutual recognition. You seem okay, she said. I am, I said truthfully. I've been recalibrating. She nodded. That's a rare skill. Most people go scorched earth. I considered it, I shrugged. But then who rebuilds? That night, I drove to the cabin. My cabin. The one Vanessa tried to get in the settlement before her lawyer saw the updated deed and promptly pretended they'd never wanted it in the first place. I lit the fireplace, opened a journal, and made a list titled, What Comes After? It wasn't revenge anymore. It was legacy. Buy back my half of the small business I sold years ago. Remodel the garage into a proper workshop. Write something. Not about Vanessa. About clarity. Call Dad. Harder than the others. I stared at the list until the firelight flickered low. Then I added one more. Leave the past where it belongs. Meanwhile, Vanessa posted a quote on Instagram. It was one of those generic white text on cloud background types. Sometimes, losing everything is how you find yourself. No likes, no comments. Just echoes. 2 weeks after Vanessa's motivational meltdown on Instagram, I received a letter. Not an email, not a text, a real letter. Handwritten, mailed, like it was 1996 again. Return address, unknown. Postmark, Denver, Colorado. Inside, one sheet of thick stationery, neatly folded. The handwriting was shaky, tentative. It began, "Dear Logan, you don't know me, but I think I owe you something. Or maybe I just owe you the truth." That got my attention. The letter went on. "My name is Elise. I met Vanessa a little over a year ago through Damon's Inner Vision retreat. She talked a lot about breaking free and finding herself. We were in the same accountability group. Eventually, she let it slip she was married, but not emotionally married, whatever that means. She used to joke that you were her shadow, always around but never seen. I don't know you, but the way she said it didn't sit right. Then the kicker. She wasn't just seeing Damon. I stopped reading, set the letter down, walked a lap around the kitchen, came back, took a breath. There was someone else. A man from her past. Not recent. Someone she reconnected with over LinkedIn, I think. I didn't catch a name, but she once mentioned he was the original fire. She said if things went south with Damon, she had a backup. Of course she did. A betrayal with layers. I flipped the page. One line at the bottom. She used to laugh about how blind you were. I never found it funny. Just thought you should know. Elise. I burned the letter. Not out of rage. Out of finality. There was nothing left to learn about Vanessa that I hadn't already felt in my bones. Funny thing about life. Even after your own blows, it keeps handing you other people's. A few months later, I got a call from Karen, Vanessa's sister. Their mother had passed away. Cancer. Quick, cruel. She asked if I'd come to the service. I didn't say yes out of kindness. I said yes because I'd loved that woman once. She used to call me her calm in the storm. She deserved a goodbye. The funeral was quiet, tasteful. A small chapel with more orchids than guests. Vanessa was there, thin, tired, wearing sunglasses indoors. When the service ended, I turned to leave. But Karen caught my arm. "She wants to speak to you." I sighed, looked over. Vanessa stood under a tree in the lot, arms folded like she was bracing for wind that never came. I walked over. We didn't say anything at first. Then, "Thank you for coming," she said. "I didn't come for you," I replied. "But you're welcome." She nodded. A long pause. "You were right," she said finally. "About everything. About Damon. About the firm. About me. You figured that out now? Too late for you, I know. But maybe not too late for me." I said nothing. "I lost everything," she whispered. "No," I said. "You gave it away. There's a difference." She blinked. The tears didn't come. I don't think they were left. Then I walked away. That was the last time I saw her. Time passed. No explosions. No scandals. Just peace. I fixed up the cabin. Learned to cook things that didn't involve boiling water or cereal boxes. Started writing again. Journal entries turned essays, turned blog posts. I called my dad. That was awkward. We talked about the weather for 17 minutes before either of us said anything real. But we talked again. And again. That mattered. And I met someone. Not on an app. Not through friends. She was the barista at the hardware store's cafe. Her name was Lena. Wore sarcasm like armor and had a smile that arrived late, like it wanted to be sure you were worth it first. The first time we talked, she told me my lumber order was extremely mid. I laughed so hard I forgot I was supposed to be bitter. She didn't know my past. Not yet. But one evening, after splitting a pizza on the back porch, she looked at me and said, "You're a man who's been through something heavy. You carry it well. But it's there." I just nodded. She didn't push. She just passed me another slice. That's how you know someone's worth it. About a year to the day after I left Vanessa, I received a call. Blocked number. Against my better judgment, I answered. A man's voice. "Logan? It's Damon." I didn't speak. "Look, I know I'm the last person you want to hear from." Then hang up. "Wait, please. It's not about Vanessa." That got me. "Then what?" "I found something. Something you should see. It's not about her. It's about you." I hesitated. He sounded different. Stripped. No swagger. 5 minutes, he said. "Just meet me. No tricks." I swear. I agreed. Against logic. Against history. I agreed. We met at a diner. Neutral ground. I sat across from him. He looked worse for wear. Like karma had skipped subtlety. He handed me a USB drive. This was on Vanessa's iCloud. She never knew it synced to my backup. What is it? Messages. From 2 years ago. Between her and a man named Darren Whitman. I stiffened. Darren Whitman was my old business partner. The one who offered to buy me out of my own company. 6 months before Vanessa encouraged me to accept the deal. I thought she was being supportive. Turns out, she was being strategic. Damon looked at me. She helped him cut you out. They planned it. You weren't boring, man. You were in the way. I left the diner in silence. Went home. Plugged in the USB. Watched every message. Every forwarded document. They timed it. Vanessa softened me. Darren closed the deal. She got a cut. And I got played. But here's the kicker. I smiled. Because while I lost that company, I built something better. I built me again. No lawyers could take that. No betrayal could unmake it. And no woman, no matter how cruel in heels, could erase who I became after the fire. So I stood up, walked to the porch, and watched the sun set on the ashes of the man I used to be.